Chilla's Art is a Japanese indie game production team composed of two brothers who specialize in creating low-poly PS1 style horror games that specifically have 80s and 90s aesthetics, which fall under the survival horror genre. The duo consists of one older brother who's in charge of modeling and a younger brother who's in charge of programming, with their name derived from the name of the animal, chinchilla. Other than this really finite amount of information, there wasn't much else we could find out about who Chilla's Art actually is, so if you have verifiable information that could help in elucidating the background of these developers, feel free to send it our way. Released for PC via Steam on February 15th, 2018, it's a first-person psychological game revolving around the story of a girl who crashes her car somewhere in a dark forest and gets lost with nowhere to go. She eventually stumbles upon an abandoned house and discovers leftover diaries by a lady named EVIE. As the player moves toward the objective of solving the puzzle to unlock the door out of a room, they'll come to find the tragedies of her life tossed into a downward spiral of torment, trepidation, and despair. Continuing the signature style of Chilla's art, this one was released on May 10th, 2018 and tells the story of a father who comes back home from work after a really rough day at the office, and after such a long day he just wants to kick back and relax. But what he doesn't know is that his family has become monstrous abominations, and it's up to the player to help him keep his sanity. With a little change of pace, this is an exploration game mostly reminiscent of the game Proteus, but it does have some LSD Dream emulatory elements to it, so it's right up our alley. We might cover this in depth sometime soon. This first-person psychological style game doesn't have much of a story behind it, but it does involve an amnesia-style atmosphere, the mental torment-style textures, and it does seem like a quality experience that's distinct from the PS1 style we know now. This VHS-style game tells the story of a middle school girl and her mother who have recently moved to a new house. Inspired by short omniverse Japanese horror films, when she comes back home at 6 p.m., she's expecting a welcome from her mom, but instead she finds something much more surprising waiting for her. For those of you who aren't aware, because we weren't before typing the script for this video, MANTO, i.e. red cloak in English, or red cape, or red mantle, if you want our opinion on the most accurate translation, is a Japanese urban legend about a masked spirit who dons a red cloak and who appears to people using public or school restrooms. Accounts of the legend vary, but a consistent element of the story is that the spirit will ask the occupant of the toilet a question. In most versions, the spirit asks the person if they'd like red-colored toilet paper or blue-colored toilet paper. Choosing either option results in the person dying. Thus, to survive, the individual must ignore the spirit, run, or reject both options. Fantastic. This is the best character ever created. Someone who's such an asshole they offer toilet paper to people who might need it and kill them anyway. In order for them to survive, they have to use the tube or be content with their shitty, itchy ass. And for those of you with a keen ear, yes, this is what the salesman from Squid Game's pitch was based off of. It doesn't matter what you choose, you're most likely gonna end up dying either way. Anyway, the Chilla's art game revolves around the spirit hunting what seem to be schoolgirls. For context, stigmatized property are properties that alter people's psychological perception of them because events such as murder, suicide, hauntings, or a notorious previous owner are thought to have affected them. Properties on which violent crimes have occurred and abandoned properties both have significant effects on property values and neighborhoods adjacent to them. This game surrounds the exploration of haunted apartments in Japan and has a VHS style. You'll have to find out why they're so cheap. This found footage experience records footage of a famous location with an urban legend surrounding it. Apparently, in INUNAKI tunnel, people have been killed or burnt to death. This is yet another piece of Japanese folklore involving a spirit whose original story was about a beautiful woman who came to visit a man and then went into a bath and then disappeared, leaving only floating icicles. In this game specifically, some children went missing out of the blue. You receive a letter that says, "Come alone, or I'll freeze them to death." Out of desperation, you decide to embark on a daunting rescue mission to an abandoned inn up the piercing cold mountains. Being one of Chilla's art's most popular releases, it tells the story of an unnamed college student working the night shift at a local convenience store. As the nights continue, mysterious developments ensue, and the peculiar psychological circumstances unravel. This isn't the typical Chilla's art game because it's more survival and action-oriented, much like the slasher-oriented material we cover on the channel. The object of the game is to lift the curse off of a haunted house using a camera with exorcistic qualities. Enemies and puzzles obstruct you along the way, and yes, clearly this is an homage to Fatal Frame. This is a mystery-centric game focusing on a detective investigating cases of reported missing children. Who knows what you'll find? It tells the story of a man named Kensuke Tanaka who takes the subway back home every day. Play the game as his rides home get spookier and spookier. This is a difficult horror game themed boss hunting game. This is a difficult horror themed boss hunting game that takes place in Japanese antiquity. It has non-linear open world elements and is highly combat based. Going off of the convenience store story, it's about a night shift worker doing a mundane job who is suddenly thrust into a world of surreal horror. But this one is not only a massive step up visually and artistically for the developers, but a lot scarier too. We're really interested in what Chilla's art will make going into the future, especially concerning action-oriented survival horror games with PS1 style or VHS aesthetics. We think they're really talented when it comes to the psychological elements of these kinds of games, as well as properly implementing signature features of what makes us love these kinds of games, like riveting antagonists, retro vibes, and a strong sense of foreboding throughout every experience.